Good afternoon. It is July 15th, 2025. This afternoon's meeting of the Arlington School Committee is being conducted remotely through the use of Zoom. Are we being simultaneously broadcast on ACMi or no? I don't know. We might be being
Yes, we
simultaneous.
are.
Okay, we are being simultaneously broadcast on ACMi. The meeting is being recorded. All members are participating remotely, so all votes are required to be taken by roll call. People wishing to access the meeting using Zoom may find information on how to do so on the town's website. The posted agenda and supporting materials for this meeting are also available on the town's website. Due to open meeting law restrictions, the committee cannot participate in or access Zoom's chat function. While everyone is welcome to observe this meeting, active remote participation requires advance notice. All participants are asked to activate their camera and shall provide their full name in the interest of developing a record for the meeting. Welcome. There are so many of you in lovely squares here. I see Ms. Keys from the AEA. And we don't have any public commenters this afternoon. So if I can log into Novus, we will be ready to move forward. So the first item on our agenda is the second read and possible vote of the Arlington High School Student Handbook. We talked about this in June extensively around several topics. So we're here tonight. Dr. Janger is here looking for a vote to approve this handbook so that they can distribute it to students and families. So is there any further conversation that folks want to have about this handbook? Dr. Homan, oh, there you are. Did you have anything more you wanted to share with us or Dr. Janger about this?
I'm not sure if Dr. Janger does. If he does, you can jump in, Dr. Janger. But I will say just that there are a few topics that folks have brought up that I think are worth us taking a close look at. One is around transcript fees. I think we want to take a look at that and think about what's reasonable and where those dollars that we do collect on fees are going and so on. And we just haven't Matthew and I haven't had a lot of time to connect with one another, and we reserve the right also per the appendix at the end to make small adjustments to that. So if there's ongoing discussion needed on things that we would like to shift, but just haven't had the opportunity to do so, we're certainly open to feedback on that. I'm not sure it needs to delay a vote unless it's a major concern operationally. And if we need to make an adjustment, we can do that and then make sure families and students and everybody else is informed of a shift in policy. And Matthew.
Dr. Janger.
Yeah, and I would just say procedurally, passing this now, I mean, the reason why we pass it at this time of year is because it's in the returning student update forms, people sign off on it. So if it's a small procedural change, for example, we increase or decrease a fee, that's not going to create a disciplinary or legal problem if someone signed off on the wrong version. So I think that's something that we can change after the fact.
Great, thank you. I would like to note, actually, Dr. Janger, as a parent of students at Arlington High School for more than 5 years, the student handbook has never been approved in July. So this is months earlier than it has ever been done, which is really impressive, and I know is a big lift for all of you to get this done in May and June. So I actually think we should make sure that we're really clear that it's a big deal that this is being done so far in advance. So I am grateful for that. I think it makes things easier. Yes, go ahead.
And while we're humble bragging, I mean, the other thing is in terms of review, I think we've done, we had a student group look at this, we had staff look at this, the faculty senate went through this, the lawyers went through this. There's been I think a lot more thought this year about it as well. So I appreciate that, we're getting it done at this time.
Any comments from the committee about the AHS student handbook? Mr. Schlickman.
Yeah, hello, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay, fine. I'm on an alternate device and I've got a cat in the way. The appendix with the anything is subject to change by the principal line means quite literally you could toss the whole thing out and substitute a whole nother student handbook, although I doubt that's going to be the case. But if we could, I'd like to propose amending that clause in that second appendix, requiring school committee notification of any changes.
I think that's perfectly reasonable. Dr. Janger? Yes? Okay.
I mean, I think in practice, we have made small language changes without bothering you. That don't actually change policies, but we've never changed a policy without running it past the school committee anyway.
Yeah, but that appendix is just a wide open door. That statement. I don't know, is that a new statement or is that something that's always been there?
That's always been there.
Yeah.
If we could just amend that statement to say something like adding provided the school committee is notified of any changes. Just to have that loop, because we're actually the ones approving this. And if changes are made after our approval, we need to have some sort of a way to, at least by not doing anything negatively, to allow those changes to stand. But if we don't know about the changes, I think it puts the change in jeopardy, even if it is relatively minor.
Already done.
Good, excellent. Then I'm all on board.
All right, anybody else? So for me, my concern was I'm the one who brought up the transcript fees. So my concern, I totally understand how, like, I'm dating myself, but when I graduated from high school, somebody had to like print out my transcript and they put it in an envelope and the principal signed it and then they sealed it and they put a little stamp over the top of it and then they put a proper stamp on it and mailed it off. That's not how we do things anymore. It's all done through Naviance. The kids are really responsible for putting in the schools that they're applying to so that those get sent. We have many teachers who write many letters of recommendation for students that go through Naviance that take a lot of time. We don't charge for those or compensate them for writing them. So it feels really weird to me that we're charging families for an administrative task, producing the transcript, sending it via Naviance. That is something that I think is really our obligation as a district to do. So I hope that that's something that can be looked at. I definitely got a letter at some point in May saying that, we owed X amount of money for transcript fees and my daughter's diploma would be withheld if it wasn't paid. I promptly paid it. But to me, it's just not a good look. It doesn't feel like how we should be going out with families. And we're not paying for stamps and, photocopies and putting things in envelopes anymore. So I really hope that that's something that can be reviewed before the class of 2026 begins their process. So is there a motion to approve the AHS student handbook?
So moved.
So motion by Mr. Schlickman, second by Mr. Thielman, roll call vote. Ms. Exton?
Yes.
Mr. Schlickman?
Yes.
Mr. Carden?
Yes.
Dr. Allison Ampe?
Yes.
Mr. Thielman?
Yes.
And I am also yes. I forgot to note Ms. Gittleson is at work, so is not joining us today. So we are 6. Great. The second item on the agenda is the receipt of the elementary and Gibbs Audison handbooks. We don't need to approve these, but the intention today is to vote to receive them. Dr. Homan, did you have any framing for us around these?
Sure. We have really gone through these with a fine-tooth comb. I don't think we have sections that are required in one that are required in all that aren't present in both. But there is a non-zero possibility that we've missed something. So if you accept them today, but notice that something's missing or it's here but not there, please do let us know. And I just want to thank the communications team who has done the bulk of the work to organize these, to go back and forth with our lawyers to make sure that what they've recommended as handbook language and what's going to work on sort of a user end for families and students is digestible and readable and formatted appropriately, et cetera. And has also gone back and they've also gone back and forth with the principals many times on their feedback and input on each of these policies, so that we can achieve as much clarity as possible for families and students. So while, you know, this is always, it feels like a little bit of a work in progress, we've hit a point now where we feel like turning these around in the spring, it's going to be a lot easier because they're laid out in the same order. It's easier to update language that might come from our legal folks, and they're hopefully a little easier to navigate for families as they move in between schools or up through different levels. That's all. Happy to answer questions or take any feedback for adjustments.
Great. Any comments or feedback from the committee on the 2025-26 Elementary Student Handbook or the 25-26 Gibson Audison Handbook? Dr. Allison Ampe.
Sorry, I lost my Zoom for a minute. I just wanted to say I'm also glad to have these before the start of school. This is, again, very nice. So that's all. Thanks.
Great. Can I get a motion to accept the elementary and Gibbs Audison handbooks?
I move receipt.
Move receipt. Second, motion by Mr. Schlickman, second by Mr. Cardin.
Yes.
Roll call vote, Ms. Exton,
Yes.
Mr. Schlickman,
Yes.
Dr. Allison Ampe,
Yes.
Mr. Cardin,
Yes.
Mr. Thielman,
Yes.
and I am also yes. That is a 6-0 vote. The next item on the agenda is a possible vote on revisions to 2 job descriptions. My understanding, Dr. Homan, is that there aren't revisions to the actual job description. We're looking at a revision to the title. So this is more of an administrative, or maybe there are changes. I'm not sure. What? How about you walk us into this and I will stop talking.
Sounds good. Okay, so thank you for allowing us to put this on the agenda. We added it earlier this week or late last week. I can't even remember. But Dr. Thomas is here to answer any questions folks might have about this. There actually are some pretty substantive adjustments to the job descriptions themselves. And if you'll recall, we added the director position 4 years ago as I was entering the system. We then added the specialist position, I believe, a year later. And so now we've had some experience with the position, and we've made a number of pretty significant adjustments to the role itself. We've figured out what functions it's going to play within the system as a whole. And the role itself, and Dr. Thomas can speak to this in far more detail than me, but has taken on a number of sort of compliance monitoring functions that otherwise would be falling on assistant superintendents, me, Mr. Spiegel, in offices that are doing a lot of compliance work already. And so what's nice about that is that we can shift some of those onto this role, and that's Title IX compliance, bullying, support for schools, and making sure that we maintain compliance with our bullying procedures and policies. Civil rights coordination is going to go into this office starting next year. It was with the deputy superintendent's office this year. So we've shifted some functions into the office, which is reflected in the job description. We have also refined the work of the department pretty significantly over the past 4 years. And so when we went back and looked at the job description, we were talking about a title adjustment for the department to better reflect the functions of the department. And then we looked at the job descriptions and realized those also are not a function of the department. So nobody new is being hired. There are no new roles here. These are existing roles in the system, but it can be helpful sometimes for staff for us to better define and revise, particularly at the request of the staff member, the job description itself, so that we can make sure it's a good reflection of the job itself, particularly with new roles that have sort of shifted as they've come into being. So that is the purpose of this. It does change the name of the department functionally as well. These are the two staff members that are in this department. And so this would shift the diversity, equity, belonging, inclusion, and justice department, which is a lot of words, to excellence, access, and opportunity. We chose those terms because we believe our excellence lives in our diversity as a system. That part of what makes us excellent at what we do is the fact that we have so many different perspectives to draw on, and because we provide access and opportunity to all of our students. Access and opportunity are about making sure that we don't create barriers to opportunity that block kids' access to, or families, or any stakeholders, staff's access to the resources necessary for them to thrive. So those are all of those regulations around titles, Title IX, Title VI, and all of the regulations around discrimination are moving, and bullying are moving through that office when we have investigations to do, et cetera. There are other functions there that are better reflections than what was originally on the job description that you could also take a look at. Dr. Thomas, anything to add?
No, on top of everything else, the professional development that we do, partnering with the teacher diversification, with the human resource department, just a couple of things to add on of what we're still doing.
All reflected in those two job descriptions. We also wanted to create some role differentiation for the two roles, because obviously the specialist does a lot more PD, teacher facing, student facing, response based work at the school level. Dr. Thomas, a lot more at the district level. And so we wanted that to be clear in the job descriptions too.
Great, thank you. So we have two options tonight. I talked to Ms. Exton about this in advance. Typically our process, and to Dr. Holman, we all sort of conferred about this. Typically our process is to send new job descriptions through CIAA, and then they come to us with a recommendation. Given the cadence and the timing around this, and the fact that these are not new roles, we elected to bring them to all of you tonight. So we could approve them tonight. We could send them to CIAA and have them schedule a meeting and take another look at them, and then bring them back to us at our first meeting in September. So does that accurately reflect our options, Ms. Exton? That's kind of what that's what we talked about. So we felt neither of us felt strongly enough to sort of say we have to do it this way. So we wanted to bring it to all of you and see what your thoughts are. So I guess my first question is are there comments or feedback on these job descriptions, and or thoughts about whether they need to go back to CIA, or if we're ready to vote on them tonight? Mr. Thielman, you're not on mute right now, and so we're learning about lithium batteries. We'll give you just a second. Brilliant. Okay. I see Ms. Exton, followed by Mr. Schlickman, followed by Ms. Keys, followed by Dr. Allison Ampey. Great. Ms. Exton.
I guess I have some questions that if we decide, and I'm curious what other people's comments are, because if we decide to bring them to CIAA, then I feel like they might not be relevant, but I'll ask it now. I'm curious how this sort of like the title of these roles will sort of reflect in a job search. Like, do people out in the world understand what these roles mean, such that someone is looking for a job and they at some point become something that we're looking to fill?
Mm-hmm.
Are people looking for them?
Dr. Thomas, do you want to talk about some of what your colleagues have? We're not isolated in this adjustment, so.
No, I mean, some of my colleagues already have certain names that like we're proposing right now. Some have DEI, some are access and opportunity. There's a whole merit of their executive director of an office and not necessarily having DEI in front of it. However, doing the work of DEI.
It's not inconsistent with what we've seen other districts do. It's definitely not consistent with how higher education has named roles like this also. So I'm not super concerned about people not understanding what it is once they look at the job description. If anything, I think the job description is a lot clearer in terms of what the role's responsibilities are.
Okay, I guess I'm just sort of I'm looking for a job and I'm interested in DEI. Are these the words I'm gonna put in to try to find this job? But it sounds like in some ways things are moving in that direction.
Well, like I always say, language evolves. And so just like several years ago, remember we used to have multiculturalism, and then the language continues to evolve to inclusivity. So I think again, it's just like titles involved, but the commitment to the work stays the same.
Yeah, I'm not questioning that. I want a I want a person looking for the job to do these responsibilities and have these qualifications know to search for those the new terms, which I'm still trying to get my mouth around.
I think, and we can have Mr. Spiegel look into this too, but people will often type keywords into some of those searches, and those keywords will often search the entire job description. And so so long as those like words like equity and inclusion are present in the JD, will make that role pop up, and how it gets categorized as well. So depending on how we're posting to School Spring or how we're posting to other job sites, it should be that they're going to search a bunch of different terms, and some of these will be the term, but even if they search another term, it should come up. And we can do some test runs of that too.
Okay, thanks.
Mr. Schlickman?
Yeah, first I want to say I'm very much in supportive of the change of title, but in that the problem we're facing right now is we have some hostile actors who are using broad searches for the terminology DEI, and to move that language out and replace it with something else that's far more broad based that people will still understand, I think is an important component. And the other thing I'd say is that, in every job description you have or any other duty assigned by the superintendent, it sounds like over the past few years, we've sort of assigned duties in that direction that it's far better for us to clarify them and put them in the job description. So I think that it would be worth our while to both approve this and to do it today.
Ms. Keys?
Hi, I've got 2 points. One is just, I want to remind everybody involved with job descriptions that the Unit A contract says the association will be provided ample opportunity for input on any new job descriptions. And this is the second time I've seen one for the first time at a school committee meeting where it's being voted on. So yeah, that's challenging because I'm trying to think on the fly here. There is one thing in the specialist job description that says partner with school teams to respond to situations that compromise inclusion and belonging when a responsive and restorative educational response is warranted. I think partnering with the school teams is great. We don't like to have Unit A members like mediating other Unit A members. So partnering is great. I just want to make sure that this job responsibility isn't going to become sort of running mediation sessions when there's conflicts among staff.
Absolutely not. That would be Dr. Hill Thomas. I'm sorry, Julie. We decided to put this on the agenda this week. That's my fault.
Dr. Allison Ampe?
I don't have specific language to propose, but I just feel like the director position is meant to include people with disabilities, and I mean to help promote inclusion for people with disabilities and stuff. And I feel what I'm not seeing is collaboration with the assistant superintendent, for special ed, or whatever the correct title is. And also just, I feel that part could be beefed up a bit. I'm not sure. I feel like we need to hold the job description for that. I mean, hold approval, but you were asking for comments, and that's kind of my comment. So
sorry.
Yes, Dr. Homan.
I wonder, given that and the fact that we need to provide ample time for feedback for Unit A, if we can consider this a first read, if we feel like we need more discussion, maybe go to CIAA and do a final approval in September at our first meeting.
Ms. Exton, does that work for you? It puts it puts you in the, you have to have, you got to get a meeting sort of, because it would be nice to do this. I think we meet September-ish. I don't know, 9th.
Yeah, no, after hearing Ms. Key's comments, I was going to actually suggest that we do move this to CIA. So I'm happy to make that motion and set up a meeting, and then we can bring that to the full committee at the first meeting in September.
Yes, Dr. Homan.
Alternative possibility. Would it be possible for the committee to, I don't even know if this is procedurally appropriate, so you can tell me if it's not, but like, could we discuss it in CIAA, and could the committee give authority to CIAA to approve it so that we can move forward? Which I only suggest because that would allow us to just change the website and announce it at the beginning of the year, which happens before our first meeting of the year. And if the committee is okay with us making revisions in CIAA and saying, okay, this is done, like we could workshop it and finish it, and that would give AEA a chance to review it, then I would be very comfortable with that. And logistically, it would simplify things. If not, I'm also completely fine with a vote the first meeting of the year.
I think we've got to vote it, just in the off chance that this becomes a thing. I would feel much more comfortable. Like I think there's risk. Like I just worry that it puts you guys in a tough position too, that like you make the sort of foregone conclusion that the updates are going to be made, and then somebody makes hay of it, and then we end up voting it 3 days late. Like, yeah, it just, I don't know. Somebody with a calendar, it just starts to get to be tricky, I think. So I think we do CIA, see when they can get a meeting scheduled. And then, I'm hopeful that everything is going to be like where Ms. Diggins is, and the like in Hawaii, palm trees and waves until the end of August. But I mean, I think there's there's a possibility that we could have to do a remote meeting at the end of August for something else too. So, and we could take this up then too. So. All right. So, Ms. Exton, would you like to make a motion to send this to CIA?
Sure. I move to refer, and I'm having such a hard time with the names of these, I apologize. The job descriptions for the Director of Excellence, Access, and Opportunity, and the job description for Excellence, Access, and Opportunity Specialist to CIA Subcommittee.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Exton, second by Mr. Cardin. Any discussion? Seeing none.
Yes.
Sorry, Mr. Schlickman.
Yes. I'm trying to be polite here and raising.
Sorry, I never saw your hand go down, so that's my fault. I'm sorry. Go ahead. Yes, please, Mr. Schlickman.
Okay. I'm just sort of wondering if we couldn't vote the change in the title and refer the job description. Would that work? And would my colleagues think that would be an appropriate thing to do?
That would resolve my logistical concern.
So ostensibly, we would be approving a job description that would have the new title, but the current job requirements as they stand yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
And then review the rest of the language in the job description at CIAA, bring that back to us in September.
Precisely. Attach the new titles to the current job description and forward the new job description to CIAA. That's what I think we should do. But it's up to 7 members or 6 members of the committee.
Or 6 of us.
Not me, yeah.
Yes. Dr. Allison Ampe?
Normally, I wouldn't care, but I think given the current climate, that would not be a bad thing to do. To approve it now, I mean, to change the title with the old job description and then work on getting a new job description and approve that in September.
Ms. Exton?
I agree. So I'll withdraw my motion for now. Does that make sense, Mr. Schlickman?
That would work. It's up to the chair to make that decision.
Sure. So so I want to ask, I'm going to put Ms. Keys on the spot just for a second. Is your interpretation of I'm really not trying to like.
We're good. I've read everything. We're fine. It looks great. I'm good. You can vote it tonight if you want to. I don't care.
No, that's fine. No. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. So yes, let's do that. So I am looking for a motion now to approve a job description as currently in existence.
Let me make the motion.
Yeah, please do, Mr. Schlickman.
Okay.
Go for it.
I move that we change the job title for the two jobs and forward the description to CIAA for further review.
Second.
All right, discussion on this. Seeing none, I'm going to start at the top this time. Mr. Cardin.
Yes.
Mr. Schlickman.
Yes.
Dr. Allison Ampe.
Yes.
Ms. Exton.
Yes.
Mr. Thielman.
Yes.
And I am also yes. Okay. So Dr. Homan, you're clear, and Dr. Thomas, you're good on we're in this sort of interim place. Forge ahead as you are. But congratulations to both of you on your new titles.
Thank you.
Okay, let's see. So the next item we have is a potential vote on budget transfers for FY25. Mr. Gorski.
Sure. And Dr. Homan, are you going to share the transfer category memo?
And yes, I'll pull it up. Go ahead.
Okay. And I also have an update as part of this as well on the year-end process that we've gone through, particularly since the last school committee meeting. So as the school committee is well aware, you vote the budget by budget transfer category. As we discussed at our last meeting, some challenges with year-end close based upon additional expenditures that weren't encumbered that popped up in June, primarily in facilities, but a couple of other departments. We've been working through the business office has been working through year-end transfers, working with the comptroller's office, looking at revolving accounts, looking at allowable expenditures, at grants. I know at one point we were discussing the possibility of having a vote this evening on the sped reserve that were required, and also a vote by the select board. We're able to narrow the gap and also have the good fortune of the state releasing a supplemental circuit breaker allotment of 125K for FY25, which allowed us not to have to go out for a sped reserve vote. So that's the positive. As we talk, I think the easiest way to look at this is through the chart here of the categories. Obviously, the spending categories are admin. We had contingency related to the CBA. That was the 1.2 million that was added to the budget. Curriculum and instruction, elementary, other, secondary, and sped. Original budget, there are carry forward, that's additional appropriation in munis, and some transfers. We're remaining in those lines. We had proposed transfers, which were after some of the transfers we had done to revolving accounts. And then a revised budget categories that you see in the middle of the chart there, starting with just over 3 million for admin. The next column is expended. That is as of the date that this was run last week. We have our remaining encumbrances of just over 300,000. That's also part of our solution, as I mentioned at our last meeting. We are paying invoices. Primarily, the majority of this is in special education and transportation. I would expect that some dollars will come back to the budget when final invoices are paid. And then we have our teacher accrual. So this is our 26 payment teachers. We accrued just over $7 million, which is the equivalent of 4 biweekly teacher paychecks. And that gets spent down as we go through July and August. The town will close the books. The town's books will be closed at the end of that process. So we're looking at late August, early September. The earlier the town closes its books, the better for the district in relation to end of year report financials, just pulling those numbers and the ability to file the end of the year financial report by the September 30th deadline. The last column here, the grants and revolving transfers, this is reflecting the final transfers. So right now we're projecting about a gap of about 228,000, just over close to 229,000. The just over 9,000 under curriculum and instruction is related to a Title IV transfer that we're going to do, and that hasn't been processed yet by the comptroller's office. The $11,498 is related to Elevating Student Voice Grant. We're going to transfer general fund expenditures off to the grant. And then under special education, as I mentioned, we have a supplemental circuit breaker allotment of $125,000 for the district. And then the plan currently is to tap about $83,000 to close out the fiscal year on budget. As I mentioned, I'm hopeful that we may have some additional dollars come back to the budget based upon our paying of final invoices that will reduce the amount of circuit breaker that we need to utilize, that will save some additional dollars for next year. And just if we can come down to the third page of the memo, this is laying out kind of some of the factors that I know we talked about them throughout the year. Obviously, there were some challenges with the way the FY25 budget was constructed and loaded, including staff and budget allocations. We've addressed some of that during the year. We're still looking at items, particularly if we carried forward anything into FY26, that we correct those. As Dr. Homan had mentioned at our prior meeting, actually at our subcommittee meeting in June, looking at correcting those early in the fall. But we are also, the business office is working with principals and department heads and admin staff to correct any budget lines. So lines where we have budget, but expenditures are going to lines where there are no budgets, trying to correct those so our budgets are aligned with our expenditures. Obviously, we had challenges with transportation expenditures. This is not unique to Arlington. I think what is unique is that there were some adjustments made in the 24 budget that got carried forward into 25, reducing transportation lines, particularly in SPED, that we've made some adjustments for 26. We need to take a look at that and ensure that we have proper funding in those lines going forward. We also utilize contracted services to fill critical positions like SSPs in SPED. Those don't come at a cheaper dollar amount. It's typically higher than if we hired staff for those positions. So looking at that, and that was not just in special education. We also, facilities had challenges this year, particularly hiring trade positions like electricians and plumbers. So a lot of that went out to contracted services. Some of the other challenges that contributed to unencumbered expenditures being added in June included staffing challenges in facilities this year, particularly in their leadership and admin position. So we work with them throughout the year. We'll take a look at that. We've already had conversations with Jay McNeil, the new facilities director. Mike Partoley has taken on the role of assistant facilities director, and they have a new admin coming on. So I'm hopeful that we'll have a better hold on the budget going forward. And then what we have here listed is transfers that were done. Some of these are typical that the district has done in the past, and some of them are probably additional based upon where we were with the budget. But moving custodial and utilities expenses off of the general fund to building rentals revolving. As I mentioned, we had challenges with transportation expenses, so we moved dollars off to the transportation revolving account. We moved some curriculum staff expenditures off to the tuition revolving account, similar to the foreign exchange revolving account. Moved some teacher and para salaries of staff working at the preschool that charge the general fund to the preschool revolving account. And then we were able to identify $77,000 of available budget within IDEA, so that the district has typically carried forward IDEA grant funding over multiple fiscal years. So we had some flexibility to move expenditures in the current year to the grant. So with all that being said, that's the process that we've gone through. It's certainly been a learning process this year. I think the business office going forward, I think we did many good things, particularly around year-end meeting with principals and department heads. I think we've identified the departments that may need little additional work as we go through, particularly in the budget with the expenditures, and ensuring that we stay within the budget as we move through FY26. As I mentioned, we're going to work on correcting any deficiencies in the FY26 budget, particularly in budget lines, and ensure that all accounts that are being utilized have a proper budget amount in them, and review all of our spending, stipends, transportation, et cetera, to ensure that we're on track next year. And also look at our projections too, going forward, to ensure that we're picking up any possible unencumbered expenditures. Something I also mentioned at the subcommittee meeting is that we're going to look at a budget software. My budget file is a budget software that the district used in the past. At some point, the district went away from it and went to Google Sheets. It's an economical, highly customizable software suite. I spoke with Cindy Marr, who is my counterpart in Wellesley, who has utilized it for several years, and they rave about the software. It's essentially, with the setup, apart from the setup costs, it's $2 per student with minimal uplift charges going forward. So you would not be able to find a comparable budget software that is as economical. And I think we would get away from some of the formula changes that we make year over year in a Google Sheet, Excel manner, that we'd have a lot of that built right into our budget software, which would make this more transparent and I think more easily understood by the end user, the principals, department heads, school committee, and other folks that are interested in the budget. And with that, I open up to any questions. Or if the superintendent would like to add on.
Yes, Dr. Homan and then Mr. Schlickman.
So I'll just add gratitude for the combing through that has happened in the business office to identify expenses we can transfer onto revolving accounts. And I'll weigh in based on some experience with this over the last several years, that those last 3 transfers look fairly typical. These are expense transfers we would expect towards the end of the year, but doesn't mean that, for example, with the preschool revolving, we can't program in to plan to charge those expenses more proactively, so it's not a transfer at the end of the year. That's something that Mr. Gorski and I are talking about. The one that is, well, a couple that are either probably not going to keep happening or are remarkably different from previous years. The 51K to the tuition revolving, Mr. Gorski, did that more or less close that one out or take it down
Yes.
pretty far? Yeah. So
Yeah.
this one we take very little revenue in on anymore. We used to take in more, and so my anticipation would be that that is not any longer really all that available to us. The transfer that Mr. Gorski mentioned to Title IV, if we don't have Title IV funds coming in, would not be something that would be available to us. If we proactively spend forward on IDEA instead of carrying over as we have done in previous years, then that spends down potential buffer in a year that we might need it, which is not like I would expect us to post something to IDEA towards the end of each year to even out the balance, but just noting that. And the $640,000 of custodial and utilities expenses, we always move a significant 6-digit figure into rentals, facilities rentals, but that is a very high number. So that does have the effect of pulling the balance down on that. And as Mr. Gorski said, we'll have a report on all of that for you. But it is atypical for us to have that extensive of a set of expenses. And so we're working directly with facilities, as you mentioned, to have a better plan moving forward for tracking that, because we won't have we also need to take a look at what we're charging for rentals, and we need to increase some of those rates. We haven't in a couple of years. That is something we're going to work on. We are also working on an adjusted approach to reserving, like actually doing the facilities rental requests and doing all of the approvals for that, so that that's more streamlined and we can track it and have better data about our rentals and how much they're costing and how many people are using it and who's utilizing those. So all of that is in the works. But my perhaps biggest flag would be on the custodial and utilities expenses, because that was far greater than originally anticipated this year.
Mr. Schlickman and then Dr. Allison Ampe.
Okay. First I want to say that yeah, this has been an extraordinary year for positives and negatives in terms of changing systems. And because I played with this professionally, I'd like to ask, through you, Madam Chair, Mr. Gorski, about the interface of the proposed system, software system he's going to use with Munis, which is, I think, the town side. I don't think the school committee should get involved in any way with what software system he wants. If we have in the budget, he wants it, we should go for it. But I just sort of like to understand that a little.
Mr. Gorski.
Yeah, sure. To the chair. So we had a demo on the My Budget file software and asked about that. There's an ability to upload and download from Munis. I'd like to take a look at it a little bit more extensively. I think it's more at a basic level, but we would be able to pull the information in that we need to into the My Budget file suite.
Yeah, my experience with Munis is it's difficult and cranky if you're trying to import, export, or pair with it, because I've done that. Other than that, I think that we have an obligation right now to move forward the budget transfers, and I'm interested in hearing what Dr. Allison Ampe has to say.
Dr. Allison Ampe.
Thanks. Mr. Gorski, I was wondering the expenses, the transportation expenses that are being transferred to the Bishop Bus Fund. Were those incurred from the Bishop Bus?
So they were, a portion of them were, but they were all transportation. A lot of the expenditures were related to that, but it gets a little difficult because it's in the way that we parse out the expenditures in transportation. It's not always easy to isolate the program itself. So in other words, we have salaries, they're making multiple runs. So you have salaries, you have your fuel expenditures, you have your maintenance expenditures. There's a portion that are related to the Bishop run itself, and there are expenditures that are not related to the Bishop Run.
Okay, I'm raising that because I don't think we can spend money from fees on something that wasn't part of what people are getting with those fees. I understand what you're saying, and I'm raising this just as I think we need to think about how we're moving what we're doing. I don't want us to get in trouble because we're utilizing money which was for one purpose and we're using it for something else.
Yeah, and I did have a fairly extensive conversation with Ida Cody, the
Mhm.
comptroller, about what was allowable and what wasn't as we went through these transfers, including looking at the revolving accounts. But that is a fair point because that was a concern that we are, even for our grants, that we're moving allowable expenditures, and it wouldn't be an issue with any audit, related activity.
I'm also just concerned that a parent or family could raise a concern that they're being charged money that isn't actually going for their service. So
Yeah, and I'll go back, I can go back and ensure that we have an amount that matches that we can tie back to the Bishop Run itself.
okay, thank you.
Dr. Homan, did you want to add anything to that?
Only that one of the things that Mr. Persky and I've talked about a few times when we've talked about rentals and fees in particular is the challenge of establishing what the service itself actually costs, inclusive of some of those incidentals. So like for one example, and I'll take it out of transportation for a moment, is that we run our ACE programming now in a building that is more costly than the buildings we would run that programming in for summer fun previously. And we have more kids accessing that, which is fantastic, and costly. So then figuring out like how do you figure out what a cost of a room rental is, or a large room rental is, when you're accounting for things that are lumped into a larger bill that comes to the town, and that's exceptionally difficult to do. So like you can't qualify the cost of an engine repair or battery repair on an electric bus as being just about the Bishop bus if that bus is then also used for these 18 other runs. But a portion of that cost is because that bus is used for that run. And so one of the things that Mr. Gorski and I need to think about is how we communicate what those funds in fees or rentals are going towards, what they are funding, and the fact that they're funding those specific things like the cost of the custodian, but also the cost of operating the building during that time, the cost of keeping lights on at that time, as best we can approximate those sort of operational and incidental and sometimes indirect costs, but that are very much still part of using the facility, using the resource. So all I had to say, I hear you, Dr. Allison Ampe, and it's difficult to draw that straight line. And we're thinking about how we can best do that in a way that doesn't make people feel like funds aren't, I've paid this and it should go towards that, and that is accurate, and that's how that's supposed to be spent. So it's complicated, but we'll figure it out.
Anybody else? So seeing none, so I need somebody to read all of the transfers to create I think to create the motion. Mr. Schlickman, are you willing to do an interpretive reading of that beginning on page 2?
Yeah, in that for the line in page 2. Okay. I move that the Arlington School Committee approve the following fiscal 25 budget transfers and adjustments. A, increase elementary education category by $1,498,082. B, increase secondary education category by $784,861. C, increase special education category by $887,099. D, decrease curriculum and instruction category by $1,307,876. E, increase administration category by $185,969. F, decrease other category by $796,664. G, decrease contingency by $1,251,471, resulting in the following spending from the town appropriation of $96,852,756 for fiscal 25. A, elementary education, $27,347,635. B, secondary education, $27,893,220. C, special education, $25,679,513. D, curriculum and instruction, $3,797,381. Administration, $3,025,274. And other, $9,109,733. So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Second from Ms. Exton. Any discussion? Seeing none, roll call vote. Mr. Schlickman,
Yes.
Ms. Exton,
Yes.
Mr. Thielman,
Yes.
Dr. Allison Ampe,
Yes.
Mr. Cardin,
Yes.
and I am also yes. Okay. The next item on our agenda is the superintendent's update. Dr. Holman.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. Happy summer. Thank you for being here and stepping away from whatever wonderful things you're up to this summer. We appreciate being able to get some operational things done. I have a few brief updates for you. We had principal and cabinet initial training on the new, it's called I Love You Guys, I'll explain that in a second, foundation safety framework with all of our senior administrators and Chief Flaherty and APD this past Thursday. It is called that, we learned at the training, because the folks who founded this actually lost their daughter in crisis at her school with an active shooter situation. And that is the last text that she sent them. And it's an awful and tragic story. And that family wanted to create a framework that would allow for shared language, that would focus on reunification when there is a crisis situation, that would be supportive of staff in schools, and that would base, and this is really key, would base its action plans on research-based methodologies that have been proven to keep students safe at school, and to keep school campuses safe. So we have chosen this because we heard wonderful things about it, and because we've actually had a couple of folks join the district who were in other districts that use this framework, and they really appreciated it. And so we did a little bit of learning about it. Our SRO and our court liaison, Ms. Curran, went to a conference on this framework and learned more about it there and got trained as well. And the entire Arlington Police Department force has now been trained in this framework, and now we're next. And so the logistics of some of what comes next for this, and I know we've discussed this a little bit with the school committee following incidents this fall, or this past school year, fall and spring. It is a framework that provides common language response protocols, communication templates, and comprehensive reunification processes, some of which we have needed to develop on our own using the ALICE framework, particularly the communication templates. So we're really excited that this comes with a lot of that sort of built, and that schools have had a lot of experience using, and that we can sort of, for some of it, really take it out of the box and use it. Other things we'll need to tweak and adjust to fit our context. It also comes with a comprehensive reunification process that is very involved. So we will not be this is a multi-year rollout. What we've learned from other districts is that when they use this, there's a whole reunification team People have roles, they have jobs, they go get trained separately, and that if in the event of a serious incident where students are evacuated to a reunification site, and we are managing a major sort of extremely emotional situation, then that whole process is laid out, it is practiced and rehearsed, and it allows for as supportive of reunification as possible. And no other program that we know of has that in it and built in. All, like I said, APD officers have been trained, and once the schools roll this out, all other Arlington Town departments will be trained in this approach following our rollout of it as well. So we'll have that sort of, if there was an incident at the library, they would use the exact same approach. And so we'll have some common language throughout town, and we'll have a common approach throughout all town departments. Families will receive opportunities to learn more about the framework during the fall rollout. Staff will be trained on opening day, and then in rollout stages throughout the 25-26 year. It's not necessarily the tone I love to set on the first opening day of school. We will certainly have lots of other things to share with staff as well, and have a really sort of optimistic launch to the year. And at the same time, I think folks will appreciate having some shared language and some clarity, and having the opportunity for everybody to hear the same message. We'll start just with the language pieces, and I have those. These are the 5 terms that they use for different levels of response when something happens in a school. And I have additional materials that I can also share with the committee. If you'd like to see a little bit more about what each of these mean, we can share the slides from the other day. The framework is used in lots of Massachusetts districts. Revere, Woburn, and Burlington have been doing it for the longest in this immediate area, and have had a lot of wonderful things to say about it, as have staff who've come from some of those districts. Teachers will get some materials on the first day that they can post in their classrooms, and there are little cards that they can put in their ID holders that have this language, so that folks know, if we say we need to do a hold, what that means. If they say secure is the closest thing to shelter in place from our language that we've used in the past, but secure is a little clearer. It's nobody in, nobody out, doors externally locked, but it means there's an incident outside the school that we need to deal with, or something we're working on inside the school that we need to investigate a little further. Lockdown is a lockdown. We have had these before. We actually had a rehearsal of some of this approach when APD had been trained, but the rest of us had not yet this spring. And we had a lockdown at the high school, and we got to learn a little bit about it from them too, because they followed the typical lockdown protocol during that incident. Shelter, we probably won't use a lot because that is pertaining to natural disaster sorts of things, but that isn't to say that it won't come up. And so we'll go over the language for that too. And evacuate is when we need to evacuate due to like a power outage or a blown pipe or something like that, and need to go to another site because the safety of the building's been compromised. So we'll have more details on all of this, but I wanted to let the committee know that we've officially started our process of training everybody in this framework and thinking about what our process will be for initial rollout of it, which stages we'll do at what times, and we'll be wrapping it into some of the district time when we have all staff on opening day, and then again in November for our November professional development day. We'll probably add a little more to that as well as part of our mandatory training. A few updates on funding. As I had shared via email with the committee, and I'm planning on sending some communication as well to families and staff in the next week or so. The federal administration has frozen disbursements of Title II-A, Title III, and Title IV. Those have not been dispersed for allocation by the federal government at all to date, and we're not sure. We don't really have an update on whether or not that's going to be revisited. We've been told things are in review. These funds for Arlington total $133,008 precisely in FY25. We don't know how close. It probably would have been pretty close for FY26, but what happens is the federal government turns that over to the state. The state does the allocation based on formulas that the state has established for disbursement to schools, and then the schools find out typically around now in July what exactly the disbursement's going to be for these grants. So this is the amounts that we had last year. They have supported teacher training for Title II, specifically in Arlington. This funds mentor stipends, and mentor stipends are a requirement. Like, we need to have mentors for new teachers. We have a lot of teachers who love doing the mentoring work, and it's very, very valuable to the system and to our new teachers. So we need to figure out a way to fund that now that we don't have those dollars coming in and we start paying those stipends fairly early in the school year. And we've had mentors established already for next year. It also supports professional development. Title III provides service for English learners. This is largely summer school. This year's summer school is fine because it's on last year's grant. Next year's summer school, if these funds do not become available, we will need to come up with an alternative funding source for. And Title IV funds a number of different sorts of things. It's like a enrichment, family engagement, school climate, improvement grant, and it has a sort of a large bucket of things that it can fund, and we've funded different things in that small allocation each year depending on the priorities. So I just wanted to name that is something we are looking at and considering. It's going to be part of what we discuss when we come back in the fall and talk about transfers of dollars in funding categories for next year. We do not see a lot of the particularly Title II and III services as optional in Arlington, and need to think about how we can support them regardless of the fact that these funds haven't been made available. For summer administrative searches, I announced to the Gibbs and Pierce communities late last week, and we'll send another communication out to everybody this week, that Mr. Amati, who was the Pierce principal and is through July, will be moving to the Gibbs school as the new principal following the resignation of Madame Pierre Maxwell in June. We are currently in the process of hiring a Hardy assistant principal, and because Mr. Amati is moving to Gibbs, we need to identify a Pierce interim principal. The Pierce role will be interim. I had a staff forum at 2 p.m. this afternoon. A number of Pierce staff came. It was wonderful to speak with them. They talked a lot about their priorities for principal, who will be an excellent, empathetic listener to all stakeholders, who will involve staff and give them agency to work on things that have a big impact on their students and staff culture. They talked about how important it is for them that they're able to meet students' needs flexibly, and that they also have clear protocols and guidelines for how to do that, and that they're meeting their own need and desire to work across departments. So we had a great conversation. I took a lot of notes. And then I'm going to do the same thing with families this evening. So families at Pierce will come and talk with me about what their priorities are. They also have a survey. A lot of staff and families have filled the survey out that asks them to name specific priorities and give free-form feedback as well. Following that, I am hoping to take a look at staff who have indicated their interest in the interim role. I'm emphasizing to everybody that we will do a full public search in February for this position, and that there will be plenty of opportunities for involvement of the community when we do that permanent search in the spring. And I'm hoping to announce an interim appointment at some point next week, probably towards the end of the week, because we need to get through the posting period. So that is the plan for those couple of vacancies. We don't love filling principal roles at this time of the year, but I'm pretty pleased that we have a really strong set of leaders who can step into this, and that we're going to be okay. And I think staff will be pleased when they get to the new school year and we're able to hit the ground running despite some of these disruptions towards the end of the school year. Quick enrollment update. We processed withdrawals. We do that around this time every year. And I went through the tally of some of the withdrawal reasons that folks gave us that we had available in the data, so that you can sort of see the tallies. The kindergarten buffer strategy has been really effective in reducing section size pressure at Thompson as we've headed into August. I'm going back through buffer decisions the first week of August, probably around August 4th or 5th. There are folks can ask to be put on a wait list if they don't get their first choice school. So we have a number of people on wait lists because of the buffer strategy we deployed this year. I need to go back through those. I promised everybody a revisitation of those in early August. And so some folks are still waiting to find out if they can get their first choice. And so I'm going to give that as much time as we can, and then we're going to give everybody a final answer. We have had some welcome center traffic pickup as people have moved into town right around moving time in July. We tend to have a little bit more phone calls and inquiries about registration. And the door's been blocked. So we now have families coming in through the front door of AHS or Menotomy, or giving us a call and getting help via phone. So if anybody has trouble getting to us, follow the signs or come in through Menotomy and somebody will help you get to wherever it is that you are going to get your students registered. Withdrawals by grade, somebody asked a question about this before the meeting. I want to double check whether this is the grade they're headed into or the grade that they were just in. I think it is the grade that they were just in. However, I know that our exchange student population next year is supposed to be largely juniors, which is making me question whether or not I have that right. Because this would indicate that it was mostly seniors, but I'm pretty sure this is the grade they were just in that they're withdrawing from. And that would also track and that would make sense with grade 8 and having 44 students go to Minuteman. So I'm like 99% sure that that's accurate. But sometimes our exchange students are not all seniors. And so I think next year we actually have a large contingent of juniors who have planned to come. Happy to answer any questions. The submitted K registrations hasn't changed much since your last update and is there. And that's all I got.
Questions from the committee for Dr. Holman? Dr. Allison Ampe.
Thanks. So I'm looking at the enrollment numbers, and the submitted new registrations by date is a nice new graph, and I like that. And of course, since you've done something new, now I want more. And what I'm realizing is it would actually be helpful to have like submitted comparisons of submitted transfers by date and or total enrollment by date. Because looking at the new registrations by date, it looks like we can expect to see almost another 200 students. But I realize I don't know how many are coming out. And so it's not going to really change anything, but it would be interesting, and as long as we're looking at things. So
Yeah,
that's all.
I had done that submitted new registrations by date because it had felt to me like we had a lot more a lot more turnover over the last couple of years. And it looks like not really. But if you consider that we expected enrollment to start going down, then there's a couple places where it's a little different, like grade level wise, than it has been in previous years. So that's why I was tracking that way. And I put the withdrawals in against that because we do have withdrawals every year around this time. But what I haven't done is gone back in time to figure out if the number of withdrawals we just had was representative of what we typically have right around this time of year. I believe it is, but I don't have ins and outs on one place yet. But it is getting a little easier to manipulate some of these data because we've cleaned up some of our data practices in PowerSchool, and they know that this is really closely monitored by you all and by me, and that we're keeping an eye on it. So that's helpful to know. I can think about what analyses it's easy to sort of set a system up for to run more routinely.
Yeah, it's just, basically I'm trying to predict, are we going to have the same number of students? Right now it looks like if you just look at the kindergarten numbers, you wouldn't think that we're going to be down some, but you look at the new registrations by date, and it looks like we might possibly be up. So I don't know. Anyway, that's all. Thanks.
Anybody else? All right, seeing none, we're going to move to the consent agenda. Oh boy, hold on. Now I have to get see, I don't have my printed thing here. Where's my little language? View notes? Nope. This is always printed on the, oh, here it is, view agenda. There it is. All right, I'm with you guys, sorry. All items listed with an asterisk are considered to be routine and will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a member of the committee so requests, in which event the item will be considered in its normal sequence. Warrant number 25314 dated 6/30/2025 in the amount of $938,060.88, and school committee meeting minutes dated June 17th, 2025.
So moved.
Second,
Roll call vote, Ms. Exton,
Yes.
Mr. Thielman,
Yes.
Mr. Schlickman,
Yes.
Dr. Allison Ampe,
yes.
Mr. Cardin,
Yes.
and I am also yes. That brings us to the end of our agenda right at 5:20 p.m. It is 5:18. Ms. Diggins, I saw 4:40 in my head, but you were right as always, bringing us in right on time and on schedule. So I am looking for a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Second.
Motion from Mr. Thielman, seconded by Ms. Exton. Roll call vote, Ms. Exton,
Yes.
Mr. Thielman,
Yes.
Mr. Schlickman,
Yes.
Dr. Allison Ampe,
Yes.
Mr. Cardin,
Yes.
and I am also yes. Thanks to all of you. Thank you for coming. Thank you for being here. Hopefully we'll see you in September.